And welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to kindly ask you to mute or turn off your cell phones. And we will begin by asking Supervisor Campbell to lead us in the pledge.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
It sounds really good when everybody does it in unison. It's really nice.
Okay, we're going to do a little bit of shuffling on this agenda. We're going to move directly into item number 7 on this presentation of updated jail cost analysis, and we're going to give the floor to Derek Rapier.
Thank you.
We'll do after, yeah.
Thank you, first of all, for all being here. I appreciate it. I want to apologize, particularly to the sheriff. He and I have had this discussion off and on over the months and so for the last year. I did not give him enough headway that this topic would be up on the agenda. I think the thing that has got people concerned is the possible decision. I'd like to address that first and then talk about some of the analysis that we need to cover. First of all, let's talk about what will not be discussed today. There will be no final decisions. We're not asking the board to make any final decisions on county inmate housing, and we are not discussing or deciding whether or not to close the jail. Those were never on the table, and so we're not going to go down that path. Quite candidly, it's too premature to discuss any final options or what the future may be. Having said that, there are some things I think do need to be discussed. And so as I present, certainly interrupt me anytime. I stand for questions afterwards, but we're going to be presenting it. Why are we presenting an analysis now? This analysis has been going on for a little over 4 years. We started when we, like I say, in end of fiscal year 22, we started looking at what is it costing us to run a jail. We've run those numbers. We used to do this more frequently, about once a quarter or every half year or so. The reason we're doing it now is we're at a critical point, or at least a good inflection point to look at what's changed. And you'll see here in a few slides that there's been dramatic changes. But we're 1 year into a new administration, and it is a good time to look back annually and say, what are we looking at now? The other is we're going to talk about how much does it cost us to run a jail. And we're using a method that has been consistent over the last 4 years, and that is on a cost per day per inmate. Why that model? Because when we have taken inmates from other counties over periods of time, we've done so from time to time. There was a time when we housed all or nearly all of Graham County's female inmates. The basis of measurement was a cost per day. We figured up our costs. We charged Graham County that amount. Graham County right now takes inmates from the U.S. Marshals, from the San Carlos tribe, and maybe others, and those inmates stay at a cost per day rate. So that's the methodology we're going to use and talk about today, and that's why we're using that methodology. Additionally, we're going to talk about some factors that are going to dictate that sometime in the near future. Near future is not next week, next month, but we can't put off this decision forever. We'll talk about some of the factors driving that and why we need to address this while we still have time, as opposed to when find ourselves in a crisis mode or a fire sale type mode. We're going to talk about what options may be available. They may be blended options, but we're going to identify some things that we should consider going forward. And then at the end, I'm going to propose a way that we move forward. And this is where I need the board's direction or decisions. I'm going to propose a way moving forward, how we can go about making these important decisions. You don't do jail change very often. Unfortunately, in some cases, jail change happens because the jail has gone so long that a federal court issues an order and says you can't keep people there anymore. So before we get to that point, it's wise to have a discussion about all of the factors that should be considered, not one, not mere finances, but every decision point. let's talk about sort of the statutory framework. There's an interesting blend of responsibilities here, and it's interesting because right now there's in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, there's been more litigation about territorial statutes than there has in the previous 120 years. I'm not sure what's brought that about. It's clear that sheriffs have the responsibility to take care of and keep a jail, including the inmates under their jurisdiction. That's the sheriff's exclusive responsibility. Conversely, the board has a responsibility to build jails, to erect a jail, to build satellite jails. In some counties, I know Mojave has one, Cochise has kind of one in the Wilcox area, but that's a board's responsibility. So it's a blended responsibility. Came across this statute recently as well. This is what if all the wheels come off? The courts have a role in this. In fact, if the jail is ever determined to be unsafe or unfit to keep prisoners, then the superior court of the county where that jail is has the authority to issue an order without a lawsuit or anything else, just issue an order and say the neighboring county's jail is now our jail. We don't want to get to that point. We have in Green County experienced lawsuits to settle disagreements. It's unpleasant. Nobody wins. We didn't win. Nobody won. Who lost worst are taxpayers and citizens. So how do we solve this going forward? How do we find solutions? My suggestion is we look at cooperation, we look at good data. We don't need to rush, but we don't need to dawdle on looking at these problems. Right now in Maricopa County, the county recorder has sued the Board of Supervisors over who gets to run different parts of the election. That sparked a lawsuit, a secondary lawsuit between the county attorney and the recorder over who gets to represent the county recorder. So here in one county, you've got 3 offices, elected offices suing one another, and they play a much bigger ball than we do. It's going to be much more expensive for them than it would be for us. But rather than trying to say, can we solve this together? They resorted to litigation. So my strong suggestion to everybody is that we find a way to cooperate, use good data, come up with solid analysis, and see if we can solve this problem short of a closure of the jail, short of a lawsuit or anything like that. The timing of the analysis. Like I said, I covered this a bit already. We're 1 year in to Sheriff Ellison's term. I think the next few slides, you're going to see that there have been some dramatic changes in primarily our jail population. That has affected our analysis on cost per inmate. And so as we go through this, one, like I said, we've done this periodically. I have not done it for a year because, quite frankly, the sheriff knew that the numbers were going to change. And in fact, you'll see the graphs coming up that they have significantly changed. So let's start talking about the analysis. This first chart shows our average daily inmate count. This is how many folks we've had. And this goes back to May of 2022. And you can see there was a severe dip in August of 23. But we're trading up, and that last data point is the highest data point we've had. That is January of 2026. We're at 19, I think, 0.61. And the way we've been tracking this is we do a daily head count. And every day I simply log that number and we put it into an Excel sheet and we average by the month. So January was our highest month in the last 4 years. And so conversely, what happens when you spread the fixed cost over your inmate population, the more inmates you have, the cost per day per inmate goes down. You'll see once again that spike in August of 23 corresponds with the dip in August of 23 on our daily count. What we found over the last 4 years is our cost as a whole have not changed dramatically. There's been some inflationary pressures like there are with every budget in the county, but as a ballpark figure, it's costing us around $2 million budgeted money to run a jail. The more inmates you have, the cost per inmate goes down. And so with that, I'm going to try to get into my more in-depth analysis. I apologize, it's going to take me just a second to get there. here.
Derek, while you're looking, what has been the range of the cost per day per inmate, over those last, I know you had that slide up, but do you have those
I do.
numbers? I mean,
In
because
fact-
it seemed like it went from $1,500 a day to $500 a day, right?
Correct. I don't know why that is in my way. Let's. Okay, so what I've got here, I'm gonna try to blow it up a little bit. There's a lot of data here. This is an old chart, which is outdated. Thank you to Mia Ontiveros who there we go. Updated my charts yesterday. But what over here is your average daily cost, excuse me, average daily count. Down below it is the budgeted daily cost. And the reason I use budgeting as the matrix here is that when we go through our annual budgeting process, we set a budget for the year and those dollars are locked up for that function. I can't charge, for example, road work to the jail budget. I can't charge the jail budget to the health department budget. So when we lock those budgets in, those dollars are tied up. I've tracked in our analysis both budgeted costs and, to the extent that we can, actual expenditures. And I'll cover that in more depth a little bit. But here's essentially our budgeted daily costs. And we start in July of 22. Whoever's running us about $900, 850, 805. During our lowest counts, we got up to that August number on a monthly basis. It cost us on average $2,265 a day per inmate to keep those folks. Now, in that stretch, there was a period of, I think, 7 or 8 days where we had no inmates. Our employees still show up. They faithfully come in to do their job, whether there's somebody there or not. So when you spread those costs out and you average that, I think the average for that particular month was 2.71 inmates per day. That's what it came out to be. As you move down the chart here, as the inmate count has gone up, our last count for January of last month was about 325 per inmate per day. Let me come back over here real quick. This is how I keep track. Basically, I have the day and the month and the day and the inmate count. We've also started doing some analysis on number of arrests, how often a week, how many times a week we're arresting. Our analysis on that is not really, let me blow that up again too. It's really not matured. So we've started tracking some of the numbers, but honestly, it's not very helpful yet. What I've done here is color coded sort of our lowering cost because of our rising inmate count. So as you start back in July of 22, you see our numbers were single digit. They dipped during this area of the red here down to, you can see our lowest is 2.71. It began to rise a little bit in July of 24. It began to rise, started hitting some double digit numbers. Since January of 25, the beginning of Sheriff Ellison's term, you see those numbers consistently rising into the double digit, to where, like say, last month it was 19.81. So this is where I gathered raw data. Let me come to this one. This can be a little bit harder. It's a little bit busier, and so it's gonna be a little bit harder to access. But essentially what we do here is we identify those costs that are jail related as opposed to patrol or other related costs. So clearly our jail commander, our detention staff, we've got the EREs that are associated with those positions, prisoner meals, various office supplies, and some of these were done on a percentage basis. So for example, our EREs like for health insurance or retirement. So the retirement system for our detention officers is different than for our patrol officers. And so I've separated those out. In some cases where there's an expense, I've simply divided the number of EREs or the number of full-time employees dedicated to detention as opposed to those that are not, which would be administrative or patrol. And so we've done that by a percentage. There's this top section is jail cost directly. The second section is public works budget. In other words, this is our maintenance budget. It's what it costs us to keep the jail up. And then our third department down, our third section is health department related. Now, it's entirely possible that I've missed some expenses, but this gives us a pretty good picture of what all it goes into this cost to run. So going back to fiscal year, as we start up here, fiscal year 23, which began in July of 2022 and ended in June of 2023, that was our first year of analysis. And I'll just scoot to the bottom here real quick. We can see that we budgeted little over $2 million and spent about 1.8. As we move across to FY24, we again budgeted 2.2 million, spent 1.9. As we come across here to FY25, 2.3, spent 2.2. The current year that we're currently in is we have budgeted 2.27, and we took a bit different approach, and I credit Renee for this, our chief financial officer. We were essentially budgeting by block. So there'd be a block of detention officers, a block of patrol officers. And then we would, if the board said we're going to 2, 3, 4, 5% raise, we'd just simply move that block of numbers over. What Mr. Ontiveros did is he went through and said, well, how many people do we actually have budgeted? They may or may not be filled, but how many are budgeted? And what is our actual cost per employee? So a brand new detention officer is going to come in a lower wage than a seasoned detention officer. So we tried to make that far more accurate in our budgeting. That number, this last number out here, is based on projected numbers. So I've taken what we spent through December and then doubled that. Now, there will be some vacancy savings because there tends to be an organization that size, some movement of employees. There may be some expenses that are delayed or not used. Our inmate medical, we always tend to budget quite high. If we have a single inmate, for example, has a heart attack and has to be flown out, our inmate medical shoots through the roof, and it may not cover it here. On the other hand, if we have a mostly healthy population and it's the normal, go get a scratch, band-aided or whatever it is, then our inmate medical stays pretty well down. So this number here is a projected number. These numbers in blue are the average for that entire year of our inmate count. So as you'll see for FY26 in the first 6 months, our average for those 6 months has been a little over 16 inmates in the jail per day. These last two rows are your average cost per inmate, again, on an annual basis, not a monthly basis like we looked at before. The chart that you saw was based on monthly. This is based on annual. And then this is the cost per day to keep the jail open. And so this is not an inmate-based thing. This simply say, how much does it cost us every day to keep the doors open? Why is that important? Now, incarceration services, inmate services are not cheap. They're not, there's no money in this. Private prisons, likewise, that have cropped up in Arizona and other states are basically taking this type of data and saying, what do we need to charge an entity so that we make enough money to make it worth our time? But when run by government agencies, as most correctional facilities are, they were never intended to be a profit center. And so looking at what it costs to keep the doors open is an important first step in saying, how do we deliver these services? How do we house inmates in a way that makes the most sense? So trying to think what the other data I wanted to show you from this. Let's go back up here to the top. Nope, it's this one. Maybe it's not this one. Maybe it's this one. Yes. So this is just a little bit different breakdown of again, our average number of inmates per day. And it looks like I've got, that's the average for January. Budgeted, realized or actual expenses, daily count. And here's our cost, per inmate per day, both budgeted and what we actually paid. So you'll see, for example, down in FY26, there's a slight, lowering of what we've actually paid versus what was budgeted. Again, it's important that we focus initially on that budgeted number, because what we don't want to find ourselves in is budgeting low and find ourselves in the middle of a budget season trying to figure out where we rob Peter to pay Paul to keep this service open. There are some budgets that are pretty easy. For example, our treasurer, assessor, recorder, school superintendent, they're very predictable budgets. And so we can budget much more closely. There are other budgets, the law enforcement being one of them, where there's a lot of variables. And so we build some margin in there so we don't find ourselves in trouble. Similar ones are public works and road department. One, they're larger, but also the scope of what they do is less predictable. We have a rough flooding season. Our road department budget is going to cut into those margins that we planned for. We have a couple of dry seasons. Great. We've got some conflict because our road guy is both a rancher and a road guy, and he's praying for rain on the one hand for his ranch and no rain for his roads. But that's the way we budget annually to try and protect against fluctuations in budget numbers. So that's the nature of the analysis. I say our cost per inmate has gone down. The next thing I want to show you is, make sure I've got it right here. That is not the one I'm going to show you. I've got the same data down here. Okay, so over the period of time since July or May of 2022, we've looked at the comparative cost of Graham County. Why? One, because they're contiguous, and two, because they have a set rate that they're charging people. Now, I have not checked with my counterparts over there in over a year, so I don't know what their current rate is. That $75 may not be accurate. It may go up. But if you took and say that blue chart there, average daily inmate count that we would have to have in our jail to lower it to $75 a day, you can see basically has remained largely unchanged. But 74 with a higher cost this latest budget year, we would have to keep 82, 83 people in the jail all the time to have a $75 per inmate per day cost. Now, we know that $75 is not a realistic number because we are not Graham County. Cochise County went through a similar situation recently. Their jail was aging. It needed to be replaced or renovated. They went through a very similar process. In the meantime, they ran their inmates up to Florence to keep. They ran two transports a day, every day, to keep inmates up there. They kept some of their jail open, but a lot of it, they moved them up there. Certainly their longer term inmates and so forth, they housed in Florence, but they were making 2 trips from Bisbee to Florence every day. So as we come back over here, and I want to emphasize that this $150 right there, or the $200 are probably the most speculative and ungrounded number on the chart, because we don't know what this would cost. Now, one other thing in addition to inmate count that has changed in the last year is our relationship with the sheriff's office. We have much more open communication. We can solve problems together. To our sheriff and his staff's credit, we see them in our office probably 2 to 3, 4 times a week, sometimes 3 times a day, because they're in there working with us on solving problems. So the 150 a day would have been basically say, if we paid Graham County $75 a day and we had $75 a day of our own expenses, wherever those may be, inmate medical, transportation, whatever they may be, then under that assumption, we would need to keep 41 people in the jail every day on average to get it down to a similar cost to the Graham County jail. If our costs were higher than that, say $200 per day, then our inmate count to equalize the cost would be $31 a day. So let me take a minute right now and emphasize, finances are an important component of this analysis, but they are not the only component, not by far. And one of the things I'm looking forward to is to visit more in depth with those who do this kind of work every day and say, what are we not thinking about? What have we not considered? Because while you can't walk away from the numbers, you can't make the mistake of saying the numbers tell the entire story. And so at this point, there's a lot of things that we need to think about in addition to the finances. This is only a financial analysis, and we know by its nature, it's limited. And so I want to make sure that that's clear to the board and to everybody else. This is perhaps the beginning of a discussion. It is not the end of a discussion. Any questions about the analysis?
Not for
Okay.
me.
No, not for me.
And like I say, the numbers have come from our budgets that we set each year, and then in our budgeting software, we track, you can track it by date, how much has been charged to each of these various accounts. And so one thing I did, for example, because our pay period where county employees got paid on December 31st fell in calendar year 25, that meant we ended up with an extra pay period. Well, that didn't actually reflect, if you doubled that, we'd end up with 28 instead of 26 pay periods. So I took that pay period out. So this analysis is based on half a year's pay. So when it's doubled and projected, it's more realistic. Again, I would emphasize that while the budgeted numbers are accurate, there are a lot of other factors that really have not been analyzed. I would say emphasize on what would it cost if we were to outsource. Now, the other thing we have not done in great depth is we've not analyzed in great depth what building a new facility would cost, or what building, renovating the existing. And we're going to get to that in just a sec. If you don't have any questions about this, I'll go back to the presentation. Are we good?
Yep.
Good.
Okay. Let's see where we end up here. One of the things that we talked about, so there's a company, an architect company, I've seen them for years at trade shows, at county conventions and so forth. The sheriff has invited me to attend, is it the Western Sheriff's, where are you, Sheriff? Somewhere, the Western Sheriff's Association, where they have a huge trade show. One of the areas that the vendors come is jails, but there's an architect firm called DLR. They've been doing jails exclusively for decades. And so we've established a relationship with that architect group. And I think it's about 6 months old by now. But our engineer contacted them and said, essentially, let's say we look at a jail for 25 or 30 beds that has rehabilitation and space for conferences and other things that our current jail does not. What would something like that run to build? And this is not location specific. It's simply where would we, if we built a building someplace, what would it run? And the estimate was about $30 million for a facility that size. Well, what if we took the existing jail and we renovated it? And the estimate was about half the cost, about 15 million. Just like with $150 and $200 a day, those are very soft and squishy numbers. We don't really know. Those numbers may be higher, they may be less. As this discussion has sort of gained some momentum or legs, if you will, we've also talked about co-locating a Justice of the Peace Court in that building. Also talked about co-locating, maybe some of the sheriff's offices, upgrading them. There's been discussion about what do you do if you build new, where do you put it, and so forth. And we'll talk about that in a little bit greater detail later. I thought this was interesting. Whenever we in the board need some in the board's office, if we need some historical perspective, we call Kay Gale. The woman remembers everything. And she sent this over. I had never seen this before. It's quite interesting. Greeley County's only ever had 2 jails. The one you can go downstairs and tour. It's the block of cells we got from the Yuma Territorial Prison. And that was our jail until it was getting to the point where we were likely in jeopardy of a court order saying you can't use it anymore. And if you've been down there, you know why. So in 78, they began the construction of the jail. It finished apparently in March of 1979. So we are about 1 month short of 47-year-old jail. What I think is telling about this is up at the upper left, it says planned and construction under the direction of the Board of Supervisors. And then you have a picture of Bobby Gomez, the sheriff at the time. This was a cooperative project. I also wish that we could go back to where it only cost $876,000 to build. If that's not a capture of inflation, I don't know what is. But it lays out, what the bed structures were. You'll see, for example, that had male juvenile, female juvenile. They had cells for juveniles. At the time in 1978, you could house juveniles in the same facility as you could adults. You can't do that anymore. And so the cost, for example, of juvenile detention has gone higher than adult detention. But in short, it took about a year to build this building. The cost was dramatically lower and it had about 30 beds. As you can see, it was designed for 1978 standards and not for modern standards. Incarceration in the 70s, and even going back further than that, was viewed purely punitive. How do we punish somebody enough that they won't do the bad thing again? In the ensuing years, we found out that process by itself is probably not the best solution. There have been studies, particularly started in the 80s and 90s, when we took a very tough on crime stance. We found that incarceration alone was very expensive. And what we often did is turned out better, more equipped criminals because they spent 10, 12, 15, 30 years with other criminals. Modern facilities look towards rehabilitation, reentry, space for those kinds of things. You know, can you hold, for example, AA meetings in a jail effectively? Can you bring counselors in effectively? Perhaps clergy more effectively. And so a modern jail looks entirely different than a jail almost 50 years ago. Some features have been required to undergo, you know, expensive upgrades. We have a I about call it a suicide proof. It's a suicide mitigation holding cell, because there is a cross section of folks who suffer from mental illness, and in the process, they also become incarcerated. That was a very expensive upgrade. I think the toilet alone cost several $1,000s. The light fixtures had to be changed. There are other upgrades and changes that had to be taking place as well. For example, when Sheriff Steve Tucker was here, we had a contract with Graham County to house their females. We needed to double our bunk space, or almost double it. We were up to, I think, we were housing routinely 40 some odd people. The bunks were retrofitted to double bunk. Since when, those double bunks have been taken down and so forth. There's also concern about continuing maintenance cost. The older a building gets, the more expensive it is to maintain. That's true with all old buildings. In this case, those are continuing to rise. One of the things we looked at a year ago, and we simply have chosen to hold off, is it needs a new roof of some kind. Do we put on a 5 or 10-year roof while we make this decision? Do we invest in a 30-year roof? The costs go up with those kinds of repairs. There are other aspects. I'm sure if I had our public works folks in here, they could talk for an hour about what should be addressed. And that would only begin the discussions. Then I'd call Tyler Attaway and say, what all needs to be fixed? There's a long punch list. But those are factors that they're going to help drive the decision of where we go next. Let's talk about options. And I say this as options. They are truly equal options at this point, because none of the analysis has been done deep enough to suggest a course of action. Option one is build a new jail. And that there's some considerations. This is not an exhaustive list or all-inclusive list, but it's some things that we need to think about. The cost. We don't have $30 million, and it's unlikely we could save $30 million in the next period of time where we're going to need to make this decision. And so we also look at location. There are some areas where we could look at that are maybe more central to the county, but have water or other building issues. We have our current location, which is not ideal either, but we own it, and it's there, and we've got utilities to them. But location could likewise raise that $30 million if we decide to build someplace else and do the things necessary to do it. You know, where do we go? Do we demolish the current jail and build on the current footprint of where that is? Do we build at a location adjacent to where we're not having to close current operations to build new? Or do we, like say, look for a new location altogether? Funding will be an issue. Since we don't have the cash to just build it, and it's unlikely we will accumulate the cash to do so, we're going to look at some kind of financing. Bonds. Graham County went to a jail district, and then they, with the imposition of the jail district then established a sales tax to pay for it. Almost every small county in Arizona that has recently built a jail, and I say in the last 10 to 15 years, they overbuilt with the anticipation of housing federal prisoners. And so their financial model was basically say, if we have 50 or 100 or 20 or whatever federal prisoners and the federal government's paying us, that will cover our expenses. Unfortunately, there was a policy change, and that's not happening the way it used to do. And so there's Graham County formed a jail district to cover their costs. Cochise County likewise formed a jail district and imposed a 0.5-cent sales tax. Their process ran into a hiccup because there was a glitch in the elections. And so the Supreme Court says you got to go back and do it again. Both of those votes narrowly passed. I want to say Graham County is 51-52% in favor. Cochise County was not much higher. I don't remember their numbers, but both were close. And then, they're going to have to go to a vote, and elections are always iffy. If you look at the world of school financing, many school districts are going out for bonds or overrides, and many are failing. Not all of them. And it's often those smaller districts where there's more personal tie into the district where they approve them because they see the need. And in those areas where you've got less tie-in or more of a population don't have kids in school, they're often failing. But anytime you turn the decision over to voters, that's another factor. And then what do you do if the voters say, no, we don't want to do this? At that point, we're closer to crisis than we are today. And we've got to figure out what to do. That's option 2, renovate the existing jail. As near as we can tell, and we've not had an engineering study of it, but as near as we can tell, the outside shell, the building structure itself appears to be sound. Like I say, most of the problems with it are utility related. There's some functionality related, some design related problems, but the building itself seems to be sound. So some of the considerations, again, cost. Again, we don't have $15 million sitting around either. There may be a solution where we can maybe save that in a reasonable amount of time, but we don't have it on hand. That would be a far reach to save for it, but it's something we can at least give some thought to. Inmate housing during renovation. Since you're gonna be on the same footprint, there'll have to be an interim solution for inmate housing while that's reconstructed. I don't really have any time frame to say this is a 6-month, 6-year, 2-year project to renovate. It's possible it could be done in phases so that it is less disruptive or maybe even non-disruptive of the functions. Time to construct. So how long does it take? Again, just address that. And then funding. It's the same question with building is how do we fund this? What financing would we use? And then we're going to likely have voter approval involved. The cost will be less, but still, what do we do then if voters say we don't want to go that direction? Those are things we'll have to consider. Third option is outsourcing inmate housing, and that would be to find a neighboring or otherwise location. I suppose we go as far as Florence. That would make little sense. But how much is that going to cost? What's our daily cost? What's our long-term stability of the contractual relationship? We don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we've outsourced all of our inmate housing, and then 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, our partners say, yeah, we're going to double, triple, quadruple your cost. So something like this would have to be considered as a long-term relationship, and we have to build into any kind of a contractual relationship stability that withstands changes of the personalities. We need to accurately define what the unknown costs are: transportation, necessary personnel, added technology costs. We don't have a good handle on any of that right now. Those numbers may rise to the point where this option is cost prohibitive, but it warrants further study so that we understand what option 3 really looks like and don't just guess at numbers and pull them out of the air. And then we got to anticipate unforeseen costs and unforeseen logistics. For example, if we build a budget counting on the sheriff's office arresting, say, 3 or 4 people a week and transporting them four times a week, and all of a sudden we're arresting somebody every day, that's going to change. One of the things that the sheriff has accurately pointed out is we've seen that inmate count steadily rise over the last year. As he comes into full capacity with personnel, there's a good chance that number continues to rise. What we don't know for certain is what does the new normal look like? I can go back and tell you when I was the county attorney, what we were doing and the number of felonies and how we incarcerated. But frankly, that data is very stale. It's not accurate. So many things have changed in who we incarcerate, how long we incarcerate, what's a crime even. I can tell you, I've said this before, but the number one way the crime was found when I was prosecuting was marijuana. You'd smell it in a car, you'd come up to a house, and that was your entry to go in and find more crime. That doesn't exist in the same way anymore. And so there's a lot of dynamics that change, but I think the sheriff is correct. I think over time, our numbers, our new normal will continue to rise. It will hit equilibrium. My prediction was somewhere between 15 and 20, but the latest numbers suggest that it's going to be higher than that. So does that change this operation under option 3 such that it doesn't work anymore? The answer is, I don't know. And then, like I say, trying to predict the unforeseen are things we'd have to try and work through. The fourth option is we blend something. We figure out some way to maybe do renovations piecemeal so that it's less disruptive. Maybe we outsource for a time while we do renovations. And this is the most vague of the options because frankly, we know that there are 3 main options and blending them is going to take a lot more study. There's a lot more data that needs to be gathered before you can say, this is how we do it. This is how we fund it. This is how we move forward. What I would propose and the staff would propose, and I hope everyone's with me on this, because I think this is a good way to go about it. I was visiting with our Superior Court judge yesterday, and he reminded me, and I don't know why it took someone to remind me, but we had a jail committee that we met regularly. And that jail committee comprised of our chairman, the sheriff, the jail commander, the board's office. I was in on those meetings. Our engineer was in on it. Our county attorney was in on it. And then we'd occasionally have other people who had other information join it. I think that's a positive way to move forward. Now, what we were doing at the time is we were basically saying, what are our options? And let's explore them. There used to be a federal agency, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but essentially their job was to help localities go through this jail building process from deciding what you need. And they would take stats. They'd look at population and say, well, what's your likely felony count going to be? And they started to look at some of our stats. That agency actually helped Graham County. They actually took Graham County up to a jail in Colorado because it was a similar community, similar size, and they tried to learn some things there. One of the people who used to serve in this community told me about a jail in Nebraska of a community of about the same size, 10, 12,000 people, and a jail of about 30. So that was a good, study thing. Unfortunately, that agency got defunded. And so the grants and the personnel weren't there anymore. Most of them filtered off into private consulting groups. It's been 3 or 4 years since we looked at that. But when the committee kind of disintegrated, we were contacting those consultants to say, what can you do to help us figure out not just how you build it, but what is the right solution? And so I would suggest that as a step moving forward, we reform that committee, that we explore federal and state grants. Cochise County got $20 million from the state legislature to help build their new jail. I think the total cost was $100 million. Helpful, but not a problem solver. So that 20 million. But to his credit, our sheriff and his staff has been dogged about finding grants. It seems like we don't go a month before the sheriff's coming in with a new grant opportunity to help pay for cars or personnel or overtime. To his credit, that's going to have an impact going forward. There may be federal grants, state grants, other grants that we aren't aware of now that we can find. I think pursuing a consultant to help us through the process. One of the things that many of the consultants talked about is, how do you sell this need to your voters? It can be very easy in a community to say, not my problem, not my concern, don't take my tax money for it. Well, this isn't. Policing and community safety is everyone's concern. How we manage that process is everyone's concern. And there's a price tag to it. That price tag is paid by taxpayers. So a lot of these consultants will say, here's what has worked. Here's how you talk about it. Here's who should lead that charge. I go back to the flyer from 79. I think the fact that it was that page was sheriff and board says a lot about how they got that project done. I think it would be valuable to conduct some surveys. One of the challenges if you go for a bond is that you've got to pay an architect to essentially design yourself a building and say, here's what your projected costs are going to be, $30 million, because that's how much you have to bond for, or that's how much you have to plan for in your sales tax, whatever. And so having some surveys, getting a sense from our community, what do you want? How do you want to manage this service that we are required to provide? And then I think we continue to gather more reliable data. Like I say, some of the budget data, and maybe that's why we started there. There's some hard numbers. We can look at that. We can break that down. Some of the softer factors are harder to break down, but they need good data. We really do need good data on that. So I would suggest, and I will ask the board for direction, decision, if you will, to reform the committee, and we start this process again. I think the dynamics will be much more productive because we've got a much more productive relationship right now anyway. These are tough questions. There's no question about it. There's employment at stake. There is cost at stake. There's how do we, the truth is, and perhaps more so in Green Lake County than any other county, a person who enters into our jail system is coming back out into our community. How do we make that a situation that is most likely to result in someone who doesn't have to go back into our facility? Important question. And I don't even claim to have answers to many of them, maybe most of them. I've gotten some answers on cost, and that's all we looked at today. And so I think moving forward, there's a whole lot more that needs to be addressed, talked about meaningfully. This is like I say, the beginning of a conversation, not the end. And so with that, I'll certainly answer any questions that you may have.
I don't have any questions, just a comment that, this is an ongoing situation that we need to be at the table and talking about, because it's getting tough with that condition of that jail over there. So.
And I don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we have to do something because a judge says you can't keep people there anymore, or any other crisis that we have. It's better to talk about it now before we have a crisis than wait till the crisis is upon us.
Right. Go ahead, Russ.
I don't have a question, but a statement. And you did exactly what we had been asking, right? Is to do a cost analysis, or exactly what the agenda item said, presentation of updated jail cost analysis. And we've been doing this for the last few years, and just trying to get the status of that. So that's just one leg on the chair that we have to consider. Obviously, our Green Lake County family is another leg on the chair that we have to consider. Our community. I mean, how much you guys willing to pay? You know what I mean? I mean, that's another leg. And so all these things together, you just need to take all this data in, and I think having that jail committee reformed and brought back to life to be able to get that input, I think is hugely important to us, because we need that guidance. So
my thoughts are, we need the guidance. We need the jail committee. I'm very happy to hear if that committee is formed, if and when that committee is formed, that we'll have the sheriff and his people being a part of that. One thing I'm big into is transparency, that we all stay on the same page. I don't like any secrets. I don't like anything done that is not transparent to everyone. I think the committee would be a great idea, that we could all work together and we'd have all parties together in on that. To Ron and David's comments, I think that we're a very small county. I know from past business decisions and from past good and bad decisions I've made, I would prefer that Green Lake County and the sheriff's office be in control of what we're going to do with our jail, rather than the federal government or inspectors coming in and telling us what we're going to do with our jail. So I think that we're not going to be able to, I think we can make our decisions and decide what we want to do. I firmly believe there's an answer out there. Our sheriff's department's very aggressive at getting grants, as our county manager has mentioned. I have confidence in them that they can continue to do that. And then, as Ron mentioned, working with the individual voters and keeping them transparent and updated on what's happening. I think as we make a group decision as a community, as a county, we can come up with a viable decision to keep everyone updated and have that solution for the long term. For the next 50 years is what we're looking at and what we need. And I think that's critical at this point. But to continue to say we're going to saddle the sheriff's office with dilapidated equipment and buildings that are falling apart, I think is unfair. I think we need to step up and start the studies and start the committees and get going with it and move forward. So at least we have the answers and we're prepared. So I agree. And I agree with David and Ron on their comments, but I do think there's a solution out there. And I think the solution to start is working together and being together as a team.
Mr. Chairman, may I take that as direction from the board to form the committee and move forward? I know,
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, you were on that committee
Yeah.
before. Is that your desire to stay with that?
Sure.
Good, then I'll work with the sheriff. We'll flesh out the rest of the committee. I will commit to you that we will have contacted all the players before your next meeting. We may or may not have a chance to meet by then, but we will have contacted everybody and begin to form this committee immediately. I'm not gonna likely include our engineer just yet, because I think there's a lot of other softer data that we need to look at. And frankly, we keep him busier than a one-armed paper hanger. And so we'll take the initiative on that. One of the things I was gonna ask for the board, but I think we'll wait and that is, to eventually contract some surveying to get some idea of what our community wants. But I think that's probably putting the cart before the horse right now. And I'd rather meet with this committee and say, where do we go next? How do we start solving this problem? And how do we come up with solutions to suggest to the board so that you can make a sound policy decision? Okay, we'll take that
Good.
direction then.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right.
There was a
Can I say one more thing, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
there's
Go
three.
ahead.
Yeah, and I'd like to make sure that through this process, if at all possible, as much as possible, have that posted on our website, keep everybody up on our progress so that there's not a double over of communication and not a miscommunication out there, to keep communications as clear as possible.
And sadly, any decision that we make,
Not gonna make
not
everybody
going
happy.
to make everybody happy,
I
right?
don't think I've made a decision in my life where everyone's happy, but I think we can.
I get vetoed all the time by my wife, and that's,
But we can come to the best decision for Greenlee County.
Yes.
Which is what I want.
All right, good.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
With all that said, we're gonna move into,
Mr. Chairman, I believe, was there any request to speak? Yes.
Yeah.
there's
Okay, I'm
three
sorry.
folks. Sheriff, floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, Board, Eric Elson, Greenlee County Sheriff. We know the room is full of people here today, and because this is a big concern. About a year ago today, we had a agency meeting. And in that agency meeting, we invited Mr. Repair, and we talked about this very thing about the jail. Some comments were made in there about possibly closing the jail, and we'd have a study and we'd continue. This study has never been a study that has been involved in a committee. It's been a one single study, and it was been done by Mr. Repair. I'm going to tell you what that does. That spreads widespread panic in my agency. And when people and employees come to work and they're in constant fear of losing their job, why do they want to work for me? And that is a hard thing and a hard pill to swallow. When we see an agenda item that just comes out of nowhere and I kind of get the rug pulled out from under my feet, and then all weekend I have concerned employees calling me about their security of their job, and I don't really have an answer to give them. That is why you see this room full of people. I am very pleased hearing about a committee. We have never talked about a committee. We've never had any of those things. I love the direction that we're going with that. I'm very pleased and I'm very grateful for that. This is a far cry different conversation that we've had in the past. And as yesterday, this is a much different conversation I had with the county manager yesterday. And I love the direction it's going. I think that we can accomplish great things if we work together. Transparency is huge, and I've been transparent and I want to continue to be transparent. I hope that we can continue to go this same direction as we discussed today, and that there is no more secrets, and we don't have this fear that fear is destroying. It'll destroy an agency, and we can't have that. I just want to make that very clear that we can't hide secrets, and we need to be upfront, especially with dates and deadlines, and because it makes my job very difficult. Okay. I had this whole agenda here. I had a whole stack of paper about laws and what a sheriff can and can't do, what a board can and can't do. If you're interested in this paperwork, here's a stack of it. This has been done in Maricopa County when they tried to close Tent City. It's all been done. Mr. Rapira stole some of my thunder about some of the things that we're doing. We have grown. This agency has grown. We have 2 deputy positions left. We plan on filling them by the end of this month. We're going to be fully staffed. We won't have a single vacancy at all in the entire agency. There is not a vacancy in the jail. There's not a vacancy anywhere in the agency. So we're moving forward. These stats that you see are only going to climb. And the logic's there. If you're going to have more people working, we're going to fight more crime, and be able to address problems in our community. Our community's growing. You see York, there's more houses. If you're going to have a community that's going to flourish is the one that's going to be well protected and they feel safe in their community. And that's the aim of the sheriff's office. Again, I am very thankful for what we've changed directions and we're going another direction. I'm very grateful for that. And with that said, I guess I'll save my sheriff's report for open meeting or call the public. Sorry.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I feel a lot better. I was very angry, but the way this came out, I do appreciate the new direction and I applaud you on that. Thank you.
Good deal.
Sheriff, thank you.
Thank you.
Before you sit down, Sheriff, thank you for staying angry and
Thank you for staying
continue to be determined. And all of us need to stay determined and see this through. It's going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. I'd like to let the sheriff's department know that we are confident in the sheriff's department. I'd like to thank them for the progress they've made. We as a board have taken some steps to show that we are confident in the sheriff's office by extending stipends and helping with housing and such like that. So please take credit where credit is due. You've done a very good job, and let's continue to work together synergistically to answer our problems. We here in this room and the sheriff's office and I'm confident in the county can solve any problem if we work together.
Well, and I'm glad you said that about the stipend. I mean, that's one reason you see the sheriff's office completely full of employees. That is a huge indication of the moving direction forward. Like you say, conflict is not going to help anything. We have to be good partners and we have to work well together. And that's what I want and I intend to do.
And we'll continue to do that. Yes.
Okay.
I just have a comment,
Go ahead.
Sheriff, before you leave the podium. I was part of that committee, and this is what was presented today was the plan. That's news to me that, that you mentioned that we were really looking down the road of shutting the jail down. That's never been our plan. Never has been and isn't at this current time either. And
You've
so
always
I
had to
just,
include it as an option.
it was an option, but it wasn't the one
Not our
that we
plan.
were seriously looking at. So I just want to just clarify that we were waiting to build some history, which we have now based on when you came into office, and as Supervisor Wern here has said, kudos to you and your department. You guys have brought that department up by leaps and bounds. I will mention that because it's the honest to God truth. And thank you for everything that you have done to this community since you came into office. And I just had to say that that was never our intent. Not even this item on this agenda today. It was to bring us up to speed with what Derek here presented. So I just wanted to put some clarity into that.
Well,
Okay?
mistakes happen. It didn't come out that direction.
Okay.
And I'm okay with, I do love the way it's going forward. Hopefully we never have a mishap like this again. And hey, it's all going to be great, right? We're going to work
Agreed.
together and
We're going to work together.
We're going to stay determined.
And just one more comment, when we talk about all the different legs that we have to consider, right? And we laid out all of those, but one of them is our Greenlee County family too, right? And that's what we want to make sure that we consider and we want to make the right decision, including all of that. you know, cost, but our Greenlee County family is important. And so we want to make sure that we
Well,
consider that.
And I'm glad you said that because, you know, with look around you, look what's going around in the nation. You know, have all these protests against anti-law enforcement. Well, these men and women come to work every day and they already have that bearing. It may not be happening here, but that's bearing on their shoulders. They're carrying that. And like when you have a hiccup like this, that it really puts a lot of stress on my employees. And it did on me too. I'll be honest. It really did.
Yep.
It was a pretty good blow. But again, I'm going to say thank you again, because I think that we're going to go in the right direction and involving all the stakeholders that are part of the jail. DPS, Clifton, any law enforcement agency that uses that jail, the court systems use the jail, the committee has to happen, you know, and that, I mean, everybody has a say in this. And it's not just the sheriff, it's everybody, right? And we all have the say. The citizens have the voice. They are the ones. That's why you see all these people here. They're all concerned and they want the best for their community. And I think all the you know, you people that came out today to support, you know, your Greeley County Sheriff's Office, I really do appreciate that.
All
right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Sheriff.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Grace Nabor, did you want to say something? Grace Nabor, I have a,
And this is Tyler after them.
Good morning, Chairman, Board. I'm Grace Nabor, Justice of the Peace, Precinct 1. After I've listened to the presentation, I really don't have much to say. I agree, and I'm pleased with the direction in which the board is considering moving. I do have to give credit to the Sheriff's Office, because since this administration has taken over, it's very easy to work with them. You know, we send people over to for fingerprints, for different things, and they're very willing to work with us. And I think that if what I had to say was going to be not from what I heard today. So I really don't have much to say, because I'm in total agreement with what's going on. I don't believe that I can be part of the jail committee because I'm a JP, but if I could, I would agree to be on the committee. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you, Mr.
Fair
Ward.
comment.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Attaway?
Morning, Tyler Attaway, Commander, Greeley County Sheriff's Office, Jail Administrator, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Same thing. I had a whole bunch of stuff that I was ready to say, and it got pretty heated over the weekend and yesterday. And I appreciate the presentation that Mr. Rapier gave, and the comments that he said at the outset of his presentation. One thing that I do want to say, I want to talk about statistics. Statistics can be formatted to go in any direction that you want. And I will say that I think the statistics that were given in this presentation were, the deck is stacked in the favor of outsourcing. I have talked to my counterpart in Graham County, and the appetite to consume our custodial responsibility is non-existent. There is more cost than just $75 or even $200 a day, and they were pretty upfront with what they would be expecting. In saying that, I really don't think there's too many roadblocks for us to a refit or a brand new jail. We don't even have to go very far to find a good model. A really perfect model for a jail our size is in Graham County. It's the old juvenile facility. It'd be perfect, and it'd fit right where we're at right now. Not where the jail is right now, but on where the helicopter is. I guarantee it. And I say that because I have an extensive background in jail operations, jail management. I've been doing this almost 2 decades. I come with several national certifications. My staff have gone through several years lately of improving our education, our training. They carry national certifications. So when I first got here, liability was a huge concern, and the county paid out on a pretty hefty settlement at that point. But we've done a lot to make sure that liability we try to head off the liability that the jail has. And as you guys know, the jail is the single highest point of liability in the county. So I get why there's so many different stakeholders here wanting to have their points heard. The last thing that I will say is I'm going to circle back to the stats. In 2024, our intakes were, the last number was 399 intakes. That means 399 people were arrested that year. We're looking at, the presentation was about average daily population, but we had 399 people arrested in 2024. In 2025, it was 449. This year, I don't know where we're going, but tracking as of today, we're 10 intakes more than we were last year at this point in time. So the majority of those intakes were released within the 24 hours. So if we were to house people in Graham County, we'd be sending shuttles, cars, whatever, around the clock to pick up people because they release around the clock. If you've got somebody arrested at 1 o'clock in the morning, they're going to get released at 1 o'clock in the morning. And then we've got Greenlee County constituents in Graham County without a way to get back. We released tons of people from our jail here without a ride. Average daily population 2024 was 14. Average daily population in 2025 was 21. I know that differs from Mr. Rapier's numbers. That's because I pulled those out of our jail management system. And it looks at the totality of our intakes. What Mr. Rapier gets is a snapshot of every day. Our kitchen staff, we have 2 kitchen staff and they do phenomenal. They produced around 23,000 meals last year. The inmate checks that we do, whatever you want to call them, housing rounds, foot patrol, whatever, we do that continuously throughout the day. Just checks. That doesn't include anything else that we do during the day, but just inmate checks on, for one inmate is 12,410 checks a year. Last year, we conducted around 260,000 checks. We had potentially 19 suicide saves. We track that information because we need to know where we can improve, where we can do better, and where we did good at. Our staff has gotten really good at managing our jail, and there's no reason to believe that we can't do even better with another jail. The only thing that's hampering us right now is our bed capacity and an aging facility, but we do very good with managing the aging facility. We're in constant contacts with facilities. Yeah, it's 47 years old, and a county building, especially a jail, professionals will tell you they age 5 years for every 1 year. So it's not just 47 years old, it's 47 times 5. But I think there was a little bit of fear caused by a statement made about possible federal oversight. I don't think we're at that point. I really don't. In my experience, in my world, I don't think we're looking at anything near any kind of federal oversight. But as Mr. Rapier pointed out, it's time to pick up the ball and go somewhere with it. And in my opinion, I think for the citizens of Greenlee County, the best thing to do is build a new one. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Attaway.
Okay. We'll move into call to the public. Is there anybody out there that would like to get up and speak? If you do, state your name and your title and.
Good morning,
Morning. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, board members, staff, audience. I hate to follow these august speakers. And it comes to my mind that when you're dealing with something as critical and as important as the jail is to our community, because we are a community, when you bring up statistics and different pieces of information that are partly speculation and partly black and white, it leaves a cloud in my mind because it's not clear. You know, it was a impressive presentation that we heard earlier. Lots of stats, lots of information, kind of buried the headline. But at the end, it sounds to me like what we all want is a solution to how to preserve what we have make it better, improve it, and strengthen the support for our sheriff and his staff, especially the jail staff. I can tell you from personal experience, not because I was behind the bars, but there's some really outstanding people that work at the jail. And I'd say that if they weren't standing here, we are so fortunate to have people who care not so much about what their paycheck looks like, but what they mean to the community. And they are part of our community. They live in our housing. They live in Duncan. They live in York. They live in Morenci. They live here in Clifton. And personally, I'm very proud of our sheriff and his staff and what he's done over the last year. As a citizen, as a resident, I care about what's going on here very much. It's demonstrative that we have this audience here today because they don't usually show up, you know that. And for every person in the audience, there's another 100 out there that wish they could, or maybe they were afraid of retaliation or retribution or whatever they were afraid of. But these folks showed up. And so I commend everybody here today, and I thank everybody here today. The way that the presentation came at the beginning of the item number 7 kind of diffused what some of us had in mind that we wanted to present. And that's okay. Bottom line, we're all here, in my opinion, from what I can tell from the 3 of you and the comments we've already heard, there's a sincere desire to make things better, to improve what we have, not to get rid of it, not to flush it. And I, for one, support doing the right thing, doing what we need to do for this county, doing what we need to do for our residents, the men and women who put on a uniform and don't know if they're going to go home. So let's keep that in mind. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Anybody else on call to the public?
Good morning, supervisors. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to take just a minute. I think that we have sometimes a challenge in this county of things happening under the radar, right? So I'm very grateful that we were able to come this morning and to hear that maybe it wasn't what we had thought the worst of, right? At least that wasn't you guys' intention. I am a little concerned that the presentation did seem to be geared towards closing our county jail. The hard and fast numbers that you were given were definite, why would we, get rid of the jail, why we should. And the soft numbers, the numbers that would have said to us, maybe it's not as cost effective to get rid of our jail as we think. We didn't have any of those. I find that an interesting mishap and probably a disservice to you guys. I'm so grateful that now we're talking about a committee. Sounds like this committee existed at some point. The one thing that I would love to see with this committee, I think that the obvious stakeholders are so important, but I also think that the not so obvious stakeholders might also be important. Probation, I think, would be really important because they're looking at recidivism, right? How do we keep people home? As a matter of fact, there's a study on county jails, local county jails, that talks about recidivism and how when you keep people in their counties that are incarcerated near their families who can visit and support, recidivism is less. So I appreciate Mr. Rapier and how he talked to us about that we got to consider our Greenlee County family as we make this decision. It would have been nice to have heard more about the statistical side of those things than just the And I found it also interesting why we picked the cost per day per inmate methodology rather than some other methodologies that could have been presented. I think Mr. Attaway, Commander Attaway, talked a little bit about how his numbers don't exactly match, right? So thank you for the tone of this meeting and for the obvious appearance that it is that you guys want to make a decision. We have to make good financial decisions, right? But not all decisions are grounded financially. They're grounded in what's most important. If we have the funds, if we can make that happen. And I'm really surprised that the county doesn't have its own grant procurement person or some type of organization that we're using. I know Duncan, the town of Duncan does, and has been very successful lately with procuring grants. So I commend the sheriff for doing that work on his own. I think it's amazing. Thank you for letting me chat today. You guys have a great and wonderful
Thank
day.
you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Steve.
Good morning. I'm Steve Almond, local citizen, and thank you supervisors, staff, and fellow residents and all you wonderful people. You said so much of what I intended to say that I should be able to get done in less than 3 minutes. Thank you for that. I want to thank all of you that are here, especially you, because you make the decisions that really channel where we're going with our resources to a great extent, for working for the people of Greenlee County. You know, about 25% of them live in Clifton. I think less than 10% live in Duncan. I think about a third of them live in Morenci. I'm guessing, rounding off. Overall, I think statistics show that over the last, well, I've been here 3 decades now. And my wife's been here for 3 decades now. So we've got 6 decades invested in this community. And you know that the two of us have invested. In fact, I received a text message from my wife at 10 o'clock last night because I had to leave her in Mesa until I get our hot water back on at the house. After we had dentist appointments there yesterday, but at 10 o'clock last night, she told me, you need to get over to the jail tomorrow and speak up for me because I can't be there. And Councilwoman Almond speaks, Steve's going to be here. So anyway, I'm so happy to hear the direction we're taking. I want to, you know, I was once the volunteer of the year. So if you need somebody to do something, I won't say no, probably. I haven't learned quite how to
Count on
do
that.
that yet. I haven't learned. And if you tell me to leave the county, we're going to have problems. We're going to have problems. I'd really like to know what the time frame is on this, because I know we have other issues to deal with. But so let's try to find that out. And I really want to reiterate, and I didn't, sorry, what was said about the impact on the inmates and their families, keeping not only the jobs here for the people that are interfacing with them, but keeping them home and enabling them to go out. We've got the largest economic engine in the county is always looking for employees. You can't tell me that there isn't some way that they can rehabilitate people and help them get jobs here, because we've got jobs begging to be had. Anyway, I should probably shut up. One more little thing. I'm gonna pick on Derek. I'm sorry,
ahead.
Derek. I once was at a local First Arizona meeting where I couldn't believe Derek said that economic development was really not the purview of the county. I swear that was a quote. And I thought, really? Because this is economic development of the county. This is so important that we keep Greenlee County whole and farm out as little as possible. My time is up, but I'll shut up on that note. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Almond.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Sheriff. I mean, Chief.
Wrong uniform.
Mr. Chair, members of the board and the public, thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I apologize for not being at the board meetings more often as it happens. I actually was going to be here regardless of the agenda item. So I'm glad the direction, I'm glad to hear that now there's going to be a committee. That's great. Whatever decision the board makes, it is going to have effects on the whole community. I'm glad that Judge Nabor was here, probation was mentioned, and my department will also be affected by whatever the decision of the board is. As it stands, I mean, we're Greeley County, our resources are the best. Even for mental health, we wait between 45 minutes to an hour and a half to get somebody from Stafford to come up here to assist us. So without having a jail, that's going to put our officers at a disadvantage to where now we have to consider taking an officer off the streets, travel back and booking. Again, I am glad the direction that this conversation is not going. I think it is important to have everybody that's going to affect this be involved in it. So I wait to hear what this committee comes up with. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
Chief.
sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else?
Morning Supervisors. My name is Melissa Loya. I am a retired Department of Child Safety investigator. And I'd like to say the importance of the jail for an investigator of the Department of Child Safety is needed, especially when we would go out and do these investigations and these parents would get very ugly with us. We'd have to call 911 and they were there instantly. So to have the jail here in our county, to continue the need here in our county would beneficial for us as community homeowners, renters, businesses, is beneficial for us. And not only for the Department of Child Safety to come in here and do our investigations, but for our staffs here from both sheriff and the Clifton Police Department. I think it's very important that we keep it going and find the money to either rebuild it or renovate it. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Anyone else?
I'm Erica Crosco. I am here today as a wife of a sergeant in the sheriff's department. And I feel that it is very imperative that we would keep the jail. And I'll tell you why. I couldn't imagine him not being home even more than he already is. I could see where it would put a tremendous stress on any department, whether it be the sheriff's department or the Clifton Police Department, on having to transport somebody that they arrest all the way to Safford, coming all the way back, and they're already stretched, you know? So and I just want to reiterate something, and I understand that, budget wise and, when it comes to all of that, I understand that that's a concern. But I think that there's just this one thing about Greenlee County that is very unique and makes us unique. It's not always about the money. It's about us because we know each other. I've said this over and over again. We worship together. We go to tailgates together. We work together, communicate together. And so we would really appreciate if that would be a consideration about keeping our community safe. And it's not about the money, it's about public safety in our county and keeping our county solid, all of us together. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Erica.
You bet.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is John Marino. members of the board. My name is John Marino. I submit this statement for the official record regarding precinct committee person seat district for Clifton and related procedural actions affecting that seat. On June 18th, 2025, I properly submitted my application for the precinct committee person position for District 3 Clifton following the resignation of the prior office holder, Patricia Michelonis. I ran unopposed. Under Arizona election law and Democratic Party rules, an unopposed and otherwise qualified applicant is entitled to be seated. No discretionary approval by the party chair is required. The chair's role is ministerial only, to sign the documentation and to forward it to the Greenlee County Board of Supervisors for approval. That required action did not occur, and as a result, I was not seated. I state clearly for the record that this failure was not due to any action or inaction by Sarah Camacho. At the time these events occurred, a quorum was properly met to address the removal of the existing chair. Following that action, Robert Branscombe, chair of the Arizona Democratic Party, or the ADP, traveled to Clifton and on May 12th conducted a hearing for the Greenlee County Democratic Party. At that hearing, he formally recognized Sarah Camacho as the interim chair. Upon that recognition, Mrs. Camacho fulfilled her duties as interim chair and possessed full authority to carry out the responsibility of that office, including forwarding my application and related information for the precinct committee person position. She did not deny my application. Accordingly, my application was timely, unopposed, and properly before the party under a duly recognized interim chair following a quorum-based action. Any assertion that my application lacked authority or was denied by Ms. Camacho is incorrect. Despite this, the precinct committee person seat for District 3, Clifton, was later filled by Sandra Lindeen. This occurred without lawful vacancy, without my ever having been seated or removed, and without proper procedural authority. I assert that this placement was procedurally improper and illegitimate, as the seat was never vacant under the governing rules. This matter directly implicates quorum integrity, lawful authority, and adherence to required process. When an unopposed applicant is denied seating and another individual is installed without a valid vacancy, it undermines both the integrity of the precinct system and the rights of the party members within that precinct. I further state for the record that there are witnesses present today, including members of the audience and 2 law enforcement officers who are prepared to offer testimony regarding the events described, including the quorum, the May 12th hearing conducted in Clifton, and the recognition of the interim leadership. Accordingly, I respectfully but firmly request that the board decline to recognize the current occupant of the District 3 Precinct Committee person seating pending review. Whether I should have been seated as the unopposed applicant as of June 18th, 2025, and determine whether the subsequent placement complied with Arizona law and party rules. I am prepared to provide documentation and witness testimony in support of this statement. I submit this letter to ensure that, for the record, accurately reflects these facts and to request that the corrective action be taken consistent with law and due process. Respectfully, John Marino. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marino.
Anything?
Thank you, Mr. Marino.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Sheriff?
Chair, board members, I totally forgot to give my sheriff's report, with all this excitement. So I got a copy for you here.
Me and David can share.
Yeah.
Well, I put this out on Facebook. It's just kind of the achievements we made in the year 2025. The first thing we did was we placed GPSs in every single sheriff's vehicle. And that assures, accountability and really it's officer safety. And we want to know where our people are. We can help them if they get injured. We also we created an investigations division, and that has been phenomenal. We have an extremely good investigator. He's been pulling in sex crimes left and right. I think he's working on, I think maybe get 12 cases. We have another investigator. He also has a lot of cases. We have a lot of crime in our community that we're watching. We have sting operations that we're watching, and we're doing surveillance. We're building cases. We're doing the things that law enforcement should be doing to protect our community. We got a school resource officer, and it's been nothing but good news, and we're working with Duncan right now to get a school resource officer in the Duncan School District. So that is a priority of the sheriff's office to protect our community and our children. We've done multiple crime suppression details. And again, that's putting police cars and uniforms in certain areas that are known to be, high crime areas. And that is not just a deterrent, but to solve some of the crimes that we have in our community. Our jail population, we've already talked about. I don't know if I want to even talk about that subject anymore. I think we did enough of that. So let's just go on. We know it's going to climb because of we are solving a lot of crimes in our community, and we have been proactive in that. We talked about grants. I think we're over $1 million in grants. And the only problem with getting all the grants is you got to maintain those grants. And that has been very taskful on my chief deputy and my lieutenant. And I expect them not just to do grants, but to, do their other jobs too, and also patrol the roads. So they have, and I got to applaud them because they have been bloody knuckled with the grants, and they've done everything I've asked them to do. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of those two guys. And my staff, our staff is doing they have been working hard. They've been doing great. We have a great deputies in our community, and everything has just been looking up. One thing we talked about a little bit earlier was about the stipend. And look what the stipend has done for Greenlee County, and it has done nothing but good. I mean, our staffing we were at a skeleton crew. Guys, we had hardly any staff. We had to force overtime on deputies. They had to work on their days off. That's no longer, and that has been amazing. So that stipend really helped the sheriff's office. Let's see here. I probably skipped a few things, and that's okay. Let's grow this community and let's make it safe, and let's flourish. We give a safe community, our community is going to grow. It's going to be happy and no more conflict, and that's what we want, a peaceful community, and we want to keep that pace. And that's all I have to share. I'm going to start doing a little more often, doing a sheriff's report for you so you can kind of understand what's going on with the sheriff's office and our growth. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
Keep up the
Sheriff.
good work.
Very much, Sheriff.
you.
Thank you for your time.
And we don't like conflict in here either. Sorry.
Go ahead,
No,
Chief.
you don't have to for cold.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Chief.
Okay.
State your name.
Order. At this point, this is perhaps a boring topic because after following all the excitement here, but maybe at this point you look forward to something that's a little bit non-contentious. And this is just, you see the picture on the top of there, that is the airport, what we have named the airport, Duncan Airport Cienega. This is really an outgrowth of that Franklin Duncan watershed study that we did. And the one part of which we did work on was the AmeriCorps, having them out doing some of the rock dams on the Lazy Bee, trying to get ahead of the sediment rather than behind the things on flooding in Duncan. So I'm still working. I will just admit right out, it's my pet project. It was the alternative 16 in that whole study, which was keep the sediment home. And this is another part of it. And so I've always been intrigued by that Airport Cienega. I went out to go look at it when I was first studying this thing. I said, what in the heck is that doing out there? I thought it's Sackatone. Now this is not the place I expected. I've been poking around, found a lot of rock work down at the front end of it. Just asking questions and so forth, thinking that maybe it's CCC work. Still probably is, but we don't know. And I've been looking for a way to study that and trying to find a way to fund getting that studied. And so that's what I've done right now. On Friday, submitted a grant. We're talking about grants to get this looked at. And we actually extended it because the people who were funding it said we weren't asking for enough. So we asked for a little bit more. We'll see how that goes. Everybody cross their fingers how we can make this thing go. The other pictures are showing you what the Cienega looked like in 2013. And that was before Hurricane Odile. And I think it was the Odile that started, you see that ravine that's there on the, kind of in the center of the front end of this, that Cienega. It is, I think, endangering it, because what happens in a Cienega, you drop the water table down, water drops out from underneath it, plants die. So we're going to go study that, see what we can do, see if that rock work was part of it. Now that I've studied it, even getting ready for the grant, it's clear to me the rock work was probably way out, a couple hundred yards on down. No part of it, but there was some reason people were doing that. And I found, just looking up spectrometry, 3 more down the way and a bunch more. So all of us are circled for the people to come look at out of Stream Dynamics to have a look at that thing. So just wanted you to see that, and we're going to find out what's going on there. The other thing is with grants, so this is a nice part of it, that because we could only do this grant in cooperation with a nonprofit, Gila Watershed Partnership is agreed to take the lead in it. So they'll take care of all the bookkeeping and all that nonsense.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. Next.
Hi, I'm Nancy Jean Welker, as y'all know, with the Rio Sol Project. And I did just want to mention that I'm from Bowie, so I'm in Cochise County. And jail was a 4-letter word in our county for a while. But anyway, part of my heart is here in this county. I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years, and you all are a big part of me, and you're always in my prayers, and you'll continue to be. And to let you know that our project we're ramping up, and we'll be out to see you more this year and keep you up on what's going on. And we hope to bring you some more money.
Okay.
It's good to see you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very
Thank you.
much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
There's only a few left that haven't talked.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move into our next item of business. We'll go back to the Public Health Service District. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of the Greeley County Public Health Service District, and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors following the consideration of this next item. I entertain for motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. We will now move back into the Board of Supervisors, and we will take on the next item of business, Flood Control District. Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of the Greeley County Flood Control District, and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors following consideration of this next item. I entertain for a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. We will now reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. And our next item of business is Matt Bollinger, Emergency Manager. Floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. We would like you to consider purchase of 2 new dispatch consoles for our 911 dispatch center. The purchase would be under a state contract with Aircom for the amount of $118,201.63. This would take us through the first year of that. There would be an ongoing cost at this point of $13,207. That would be payable each year for supports, which would be updates to the firmware and software, which is required, as well as 24/7 technical support for the system. It would be, I don't know if I mentioned this, it would be for a two position console system for the 911 dispatch center.
Okay.
Chairman, before we move on, I believe the request mentioned what we call our AT&T Tower Fund as funding. We would ask the board for permission to also consider our capital projects fund. This fits as a capital project, but Matt has also let us know that there may be some other upgrades or other fixes to our communication system that may not fit as capital projects, and that will give us the financial freedom within the AT&T fund to fund it. So if we could use either one or both, that would be helpful.
Okay,
I had a question.
question?
I had two questions, actually. First question is, would the total be the 18 or 118,000? That's to buy the two units, but don't we have to include that 13,000 as well, the 13,207, or does the initial purchase cover it for the first year?
Supervisor, thank you for the question. So the 118,201.63 covers the equipment
Mhm.
and the first year of
Okay.
maintenance on the equipment.
So then,
Following,
which equates to 13,000? Is that what you're saying?
actually, for the first year, we get a discount on the first year of our services, but the 118,207 or 201 includes the first year of service on it.
Okay.
After the year is up, then would incur a cost. Currently, it's
207.
13,207 per year to maintain that equipment.
Okay, good. That's what I need. And then secondly, why only two? And how many do we have that need to be replaced?
Yeah, so we're going to go to a two-position system. That was something we had hoped to do. That'll give us two spots for 911 dispatch.
Okay. What do we have now?
One with a backup.
Oh,
It'd be basically replacing what we've got.
okay. Good, thank you.
So it'd be like for like then for the system.
Yes.
Any other questions, concerns?
Sir?
Okay, I entertain for motion.
Well, I move that we approve of the purchase of the two new dispatch consoles on the state contract for dispatching emergency services for a 5-year period in the amount of 118,201.63.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made in second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. So ordered. Thank you, Matt.
sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Appreciate it.
members, thank you.
Volunteer.
Okay, we'll move into our next item of business. Tony Hines, Wade and Facilities Manager. Floor is yours on two vehicles.
Good morning, Tony Hines, Fleet Manager. We're asking for permission to go out and purchase two vehicles for the Sheriff's Office. These are two vehicles that'll be paid through a grant. I think it's a DPS grant that they have. We've been working with a state contract dealer in Phoenix right now. He was trying to locate them, but if he doesn't locate them, we'd like permission to go out for bid on them.
What type of vehicles?
One's a truck like the sheriff's, a Trail Boss pickup, and the other one will be a Tahoe. Tahoe type. If we go out for bid, we can't say one
type.
make or another, yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions or concerns?
No, sir?
All right, I entertain.
Just clarification, because the agenda item says request to purchase two vehicles for the sheriff's office, but we're really just approving going out for bid, correct?
Correct. We don't have vehicles ready for you. We would like to be able to use whatever resources that our policy now allows to find the best option to acquire those vehicles. When we get to that point, we'll come back and say, can we buy it?
All right, okay.
Right. Had we found some before this, it would have been purchasing
Okay.
it off of the state contract, but
Okay.
we didn't.
Well, I
Okay.
move that we approve of the request to go to bid for two vehicles for the sheriff's office.
And I second that motion.
Motion,
Mr. Chairman, rather than go to bid, may I suggest that we simply give permission to acquire or go about the process of acquiring, because it may be bids, it may be a state contract, it may be a purchase.
Acquiring proposals?
Yes.
Okay. Well, restate my motion. I move that we approve of the request to obtain proposals for two vehicles for the sheriff's office.
And I second that motion.
Is that good enough?
motion has been made in second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. So ordered. Thank you.
Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Long
Okay,
time to wait for that one.
okay, and we're done with item number 7, so we'll move into our item.
Though.
Oh, yeah, 6, I'm sorry. Item number 6, Derek, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was asked to give a update on our progress at the county ball fields, and I'm going to ask David Manus and Tony Hines to start off. And David, if you could perhaps address the mass grading that we've completed and the finished grading and so forth on the fields, very helpful.
Bless you. Thank you.
You go to the field? Is that the best one?
Do you have one of the whole area?
No.
No.
We'll have to give Mr. Engineer a hard time about that.
That'll work right there.
Okay.
That'll work right there. Right here, this is gonna be parking, once we get this right here until Little League's over. We've ramped that around the back end right there.
Actually, let me change
Fourth quadrant.
fourth quadrant right up here.
We're filled up. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Right here, we put an entrance, an exit. This is also rounded off so that if they want to just drive off of there, they'll be able to. Over here, this corner here, we have a little bit of a drainage issues that we have to address, and we're addressing those now. So we gotta work on that a little bit. This is complete. All this has been leveled. This here will be done by today. And that's the all-purpose field there. And here's our second field, so. That's where we're at. We got a little bit of dirt work to do right here. We have to put a little bit of a slope right here. Where they've been working, they've dug up some lines and stuff right here. So we got a little bit of touch up there. All the slopes on all four corners, we got a little bit of touch up there. And should be out of there hopefully today or early next week.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
A bit, I can't emphasize enough the quality and the time and the cost savings that were involved by using David and his crew. They're really outstanding at what they do. There's no question about it. You'll notice if you look closer that so field 1 is at one level, field 2 and 3 are at a separate level. They're on the same level with each other, but not with one. And the fourth quadrant is a little bit lower too. We did that to substantially lower our dirt moving costs. We didn't have to import any offsite material. We generated our own. Up in this upper corner here, you'll see that's where we end up using for borrow pit to get the fill that we needed. But by and large, it was a scrape from one part, fill in another. And that was just so well done by the road department. But it allowed us to save a substantial cost. But the contouring of those elevation changes has just been outstanding. So I appreciate what they've done.
Good deal.
I've been out there. Those ramps are very gentle and just right.
And we made the corners a lot less steep than the other area. Hopefully they'll use them, but you always have somebody that's gonna drive off, but just in case, they'll be all right doing that. We've kind of used this as a borrow pit here to add material where we need it. Probably 85% of our drainage comes to here, and we'll go with a culvert underneath the road. So once it builds up, it'll get to a certain level and then seep out of there to burn that water out of there, so it's gonna work good. We'll have to work through the drainage issues, but other than that, it's coming along real good.
So, well, that's where's the concession stand and the restrooms? Are we putting restrooms right there in that area? We are, aren't we?
This might show a little bit better, but we've talked right in here in this fourth quadrant, the playground quadrant. We've done a lot of discussion about how big that building should be, what it should all accommodate. And we've settled on about a 40 by 60 building with likely a 10-foot awning around and a 25-foot awning out one side. It'll house concessions, storage, and restrooms, centrally located.
Great. Good. I had an idea from the time we met out there physically, but I couldn't remember which one of those corners
Yes.
it was going to be. Yeah, that's right, because that's the one in the ballpark. Okay.
With that, let me ask Tony to step up. Tony, if you could address our tank, our wells, our irrigation, and so forth. What we've made on that for to be helpful.
So as you can see on the picture, the sod's already in, the sprinklers are going. Our 102,000 gallon water tank is on the back here. That's feeding it right now. The pump and everything got calibrated through Rainbird and they're all happy with that. Peterson Landscaping has the crusher fines around for the warning tracks, and he got some clay made through CKC. So the infield is going to have a clay mix on it. Much better than your Wild Kitten field, sorry, but that thing's hard as a rock. So where we're at now is he's got the poles around for the fence. They're supposed to be stretching chain link this week, backstop by the end of this week, maybe next week, and then dugouts, and then they're completely done with it out of there. The other stuff we got is the electrical for the lights and everything. We got confirmation this morning from an email. Qual Light is on schedule. Crew will be mobilizing on the 17th of February. Lights will be here on site the 18th. Nathan with
National
Power.
National something. National
Anyway,
Power.
Nationwide fiber optic.
That's it.
NWFO.
That's the one. Yeah, he's got his wire on site. He's got conduit ordered. He's got the temporary boxes made on site. DVEC had a issue with their substation last week, so they've been really trying to catch up with that. They will have our poles going this week, Mike said, if nothing else goes wrong. The feed there, it'll come over to about the end of where that corner field is. And then from there, we'll come up into about where our concession stand building will be with temporary power for this season. And then once the rest of the equipment comes in, it'll be just opening up and getting it inside the building. So everything's on schedule for opening day, March 3rd.
I'd like to hear that.
Beautiful.
If I might tack on a little bit, one, we were surprised, our well 5, the last well we drilled is and Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the only well currently connected to our 100,000 gallon tank. JT is just well 5. JT turned that well on one day at 2:30 in the afternoon, expecting it to take 36 to 38 hours to fill the tank. It was completely full by the next morning when he came to work at 6.
Oh, wow.
So it took us about 16
Great.
hours. So our production out of that well is far above what we expected. We will still blend because the qualities of each of the well are just slightly off, and blended water tends to do better. But that plumbing, there's already a plan in place that Tony's shown me and worked out where we will blend the water as well as make it able to also blend in city water if we get to that point. The other thing is that we will install a meter on, so we know how much water is actually being used per field per day. The contractor believes that we're using about 3,000 gallons a day. If that's the case, then we've got a lot more water than we will need in any one day. We early on in the project, we had literally estimates all over the map on how much water we would need, from like 100,000 or 200,000 gallons a day to now we're down to 3,000. So having a meter on that, we will know exactly what's coming out and we'll know what's going in. But quite candidly, we're very pleasantly surprised at our well production. The other thing, and Tony's going to chime in here and help me as well. One of the plans a year ago was to work with 4-H to redo the 4-H kitchen. It's been there almost 70 years and it's showing its age. And so we worked with Ashley Mangus and Kim McReynolds to talk about requesting a grant to redo that. Tony and Christian from our team, Christian wrote the grant. Tony supplied most of the numbers that went into it. We've asked United Way for a grant to help. Our plan right now is to demolish the current kitchen, replace it with one that will be about the same size as the north kitchen under the grandstands. Much more room. The current kitchen is very cramped. But what that will do is allow us, as that is built out, it'll still be dedicated space for the 4-H, but it will allow us to maintain it as part of our overall maintenance. And so we can keep that up. It'll be a new facility. The location is still the best facility location for food service on the campus. And that's our intent, is to not diminish anything, upgrade it substantially. We already covered Little League parking. I say, thank you, David, for covering that. Our playground design, I always tend to get a little over my skis when I get this part. I want to get it all done by next week. But as we look realistically about it, the reason we can use that fourth quadrant for parking is because realistically, we're not going to get the splash pad in this season or the other amenities. But somewhat of the lessons we learned on the lighting is that if we slow it down just enough, we can do much better planning. And so we'll use that for parking. I think it'll be very convenient, but we'll push those amenities of the playground out, think it through, because we've relocated the concession area, because we've looked at some other options, that playground area is morphing. It's changing a little bit as the room we have available. And I think that's covered everything that we're up to and about right now. We'll all be waiting with bated breath to see light poles go up. So
It's gonna happen.
I actually believe it's gonna happen. I can't remember who's gonna who a stake, but I want to come watch.
One day closer.
What? There was.
All I know is I'm
bet. I remember that.
All I know is I'm on Tony's team. That's all I know.
There you go. So
Tony.
So whoever's, I just want to come see the ribbing that'll take place at the steak dinner.
That's the
So,
optimistic team.
there you go. But that's our report and update on the fairgrounds park project.
Appreciate it. And I feel that, you kind of got to slow it down a little bit just to plan it right, because this is something that we're going to be, that's going to last for many, many years to come. And so let's not try to rush it. As far as lights, let's rush those. But the other stuff, we could just do
do it
that,
in right.
do that in time and do it right.
Okay.
And thank you, Tony and Mr. Manus.
Yeah. Good work.
There's your parking. You're up close to the parking.
Good job. Okay, you're done, right, Derek?
Done with that, yes.
Okay,
So
so
we'll
we'll
talk about jail anymore?
we'll move into our next item of business, item number 8. And it's county and state budget and legislative issues. Derek, the floor is yours again.
Okay, I really don't have much to add. I checked yesterday to see if there's been any movement on federal conformity. There is not. It's starting to create some anxiety because tax season is open now, and there are a lot of folks who file right now. Those who have not been paying attention to this issue, which is 99% of the population, will be filing their taxes and then may have to do it again later in the season. But that's what's going on there. There have been some important pieces of legislation that perhaps Supervisor Warren will cover from the LPC regarding elections and other things. But the long and short of it is we're in that time where there's more bills than anybody can keep track of. Many of them will start dying off in about 2 to 3 weeks when they have crossover day. Bills that have yet to be assigned, that's when they die. So there's nothing really new there. The budget, there is revised projections. There was a projection that we'd finish with about 67 million, which is almost nothing in a $13 billion, $14 billion budget. As a surplus in FY26, that has been revised up to about 527 million. That's already all spoken for, not in special legislation, but an ongoing growth of programs. I read yesterday that the Empowerment Scholarship account will top $1 billion this year, with over 100,000 students taking money from that fund. So I think when we talk about surpluses at the state level, it's going to be largely like a mirage. It'll look like there's something there, but there probably won't be. We had a chance to visit 2 of our local, our representatives, Representative Griffin and Representative Diaz, talked about some local issues. But those are, I don't know whether there'll be any money left over to really have a real conversation. So.
Okay.
That's my report. Thank you.
All right, Bianca, the floor is yours on the calendar.
Thank you. Next Friday, the 13th, is county managers. February 16th, Monday, President's Day, our offices are closed. We have our next board meeting on the 17th. Eco and Small Counties on the 18th, the 19th CSA. NACO Legislative Conference in DC is the 21st through the 25th. I hope the weather is okay. That's all I have for February. March, our first board meeting is on the 3rd. County managers on the 13th. Our second board meeting of the month is the 17th, Equal Small Counties on the 18th, and CSA on the 19th. That's all I have for March. April 7th is our board meeting. April 10th is our county managers. 15th, Eco Small Counties, and the 16th is CSA. Our second board meeting is on the 21st of April. And that's all I have, unless the board has anything to add.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you. I don't think so.
I don't have anything. Thank you, Bianca. Okay. I do with my own. We'll move into our next item of business. Entertain promotion on the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made in second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Okay, item number 10. Either of you supervisors have anything to share?
I had a meeting with Ag and Rural Affairs Steering Committee, just kind of in anticipation for the NACO conference and our large meetings there. So we kind of went over some of the priorities and tried to sort those out so that we're not talking about, 50 of them. So anyway, that was a good meeting, and I'm looking forward to DC to be able to sit on that steering committee and set our legislative priorities. That's all that I have.
I've had the opportunity to sit on a couple of the public lands committees meetings, and I'm going to be prepared for the Washington DC trip for that. Also was able to go down to the CSA Legislative Open House, CSA office building. A very good time to discuss and to update with our legislators. So I was happy to go there, and we're going to continue to move forward as our county manager has mentioned, and working with those individuals to help us along with some of our projects. So thank you.
Okay, I also went down there and the reception, it was very well attended. And basically that's all I have for now. So I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you all.